This is episode 36 with Tamryn Sherriffs.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 36 today, and I'm very excited to be welcoming on a good friend of mine, Tamryn Sherriffs. Now, Tamryn is an entrepreneur, a teacher, a lifelong learner, and an expert on communication who helps teams and individuals speak with more influence. I first met Tamryn while working on the TEDx Cape Town organizing committee, where she was my team leader on the speaker portfolio. I'm now happy to call Tamryn a friend, and I always look forward to hearing her entrepreneurial insights on things. It seems like she's always launching some new project. Aside from her entrepreneurial awesomeness, Tamryn also went through quite a roller coaster ride in her 20s where she tried out several different jobs and projects before learning how to know what to pursue, which we cover in this interview. Tamryn's latest project is taking the content she's previously only ever taught in workshops and training and packaging it into a way where anyone can access it online to improve their own communication skills. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn how to decide what project to pursue next, why you need to find a business partner, can anyone be an entrepreneur, why communication is a crucial skill for everyone to develop, the 3 most common errors in communication, and how to start speaking with more influence today. Now, Tamryn also threw in some really cool templates for starting to speak with more influence, which you can download for free in the show notes, and you'll find that along with the rest of the resources we mentioned at briantier.com/036. But for now, sit back and let's go hang out with Tamryn. Hey, welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm speaking to a good friend of mine, Tamryn Sherriffs. Tamryn, welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Hello, Brian. Thank you.
I've always wanted to say this, so I'm just going to say it now. The sheriff is in town.
Yes, well, I can't say that's the first time I've heard a joke about anything to do with I shoot the sheriff.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Maybe I'll edit that out.
That's fine.
Tamryn, we obviously met on the TEDx Cape Town team, which was a lot of fun, and I was on your team specifically. But for people listening who maybe don't know Tamryn Sherriffs, could you maybe tell us a bit about who you are and your quarter life story as well?
Yes, so obviously you and I met on TEDx Cape Town where I was the head of the speaker portfolio. And the reason that I was the head of the speaker portfolio is that I have experience in speaker training in corporate environments. I help people structure their thinking so that they can put together either conversations or presentations or even just meeting formats in a way that they can get buy-in from their listeners and influence them ultimately.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get into what you're doing now? Did you start off in a similar sort of direction, or where did you start your career?
Yeah, well, very relevant to Quarter Life Comeback. I finished university in South Africa and went to live in Luxembourg and spent most of my 20s in corporate training there, but initially in teaching English as a foreign language. So I sort of fell into the corporate training environment totally by accident, which came with a certain level of angst where I was in my early 20s thinking, is this what I'm going to be doing forever? But what I learned was that I really enjoyed the space that's created where people are learning, where there's adult learning, and where I can take people on a journey in a corporate room. So that's how I carried that through after I returned back to South Africa.
I love that you kind of didn't know how things would pan out, and it just kind of grew organically and took you to where you are now. That's really cool. So Tamryn, you've obviously got like a lot of different projects that you like dive into, and I know you've owned like bars in the past and all sorts of stuff. And I feel like I've got a lot of ideas myself. Like I've got a whole Trello board of projects that I think could be cool to work on and explore further. But it's kind of hard sometimes to think of like when you have a lot of ideas, how do you balance all of those and know which ones to take on, or when to take them on, or if to take them on at all? What's your advice on that side, that kind of scenario?
Yeah, this kind of links back into the previous point around there can be a lot of stress in your 20s around if you're doing the right thing and how it's all going to work out. But my answer to your specific question is that I really just followed my greatest excitement. That's often my advice to people, is that you can either put time in working on projects that you think other people want you to do and that other people are going to think that you look great, or you can put time into the things that you just feel super excited about and actually can't stop thinking about. So that's really what I've only just found my groove in the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm 33 now, and I did all kinds of things in my 20s. I owned a PR firm, I owned a software development firm, I was a personal trainer. I taught English as a foreign language. I've been a corporate trainer, and as you mentioned, also started a cafe and a bar. And if I think back on that through my 20s, a lot of those decisions I was making was actually because I thought it was going to be what would have made me look cool. So while, of course, I got a lot of business experience. I've developed a lot of relationships. I've learned a lot. I had a lot of success. I had a lot of failure. It really took me till my late 20s for me to sort of find my groove and realize what really excites me. So that's my kind of measurement stick now, is like, is this really purposeful to me? Is it part of my greater goal, which I've got very clear about now? And if it is, then it's a project that I focus on, even if it means I'm doing it at 10 o'clock at night because my plate's already full. And if it's not in alignment with that, then I refer it, I give the ideas away. I say, hey, here's a project, here's an idea. It sounds like it's up your alley. Why don't you run with it?
I think the bar did make you look pretty cool, just for the record.
Yeah, sure. I mean, telling people, hey, I started with some partners, a cafe in the city, got instant cred. And you know what? That was what that was good for. That was good for that. And that credibility got me to a certain place. And I realized that what is required to maintain a nightlife wasn't for me. So I let go.
Yeah. So basically getting clear on which project, like if you have a lot of ideas, which one makes you the most excited and pursuing that, and realizing that those other ideas aren't going to just disappear if you don't tackle them now.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes projects re-emerge. I mean, I had a coffee yesterday with a friend who I almost did a project with a couple of years ago, and while we went separate ways, our paths have kind of crossed again. So if honestly, I believe that if something is on your radar and you can really breathe life into it, it'll never disappear. Cool. And the second addition to that is to rely on collaboration and partnerships.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like what role does finding a partner for a project have in its actual like fruition and success?
A big role, a very, very big role. A lot of the companies that I've been involved in have been partnerships and collaborations where I can bring my strengths and the way that I see the world and partner with somebody who sees it totally differently, and together we can bring something to life.
Cool. So I know one of the sort of TED events or meetings that we went to, I hitched a ride with you in your cool Jeep, and I asked you a question, and I want to ask it again and explore it again. I said to you, can anyone be an entrepreneur, or does it take a certain type of person? Because right. I've seen, obviously, one of the big entrepreneurs in the world today, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's done a lot of content lately on the fact that like being an entrepreneur has kind of become like this hype or this buzzword, and everyone's telling everyone else to like just be an entrepreneur and quit your job and do your own thing. But he's been saying like it's not like that. Like some people become Olympic swimmers and some people become entrepreneurs. It's not like something that everyone can just do. What is your take on that?
Well, I think we have to start answering that by just getting clear on what our definition of an entrepreneur is. So I think a lot of people confuse being self-employed for being an entrepreneur. So do I think that anyone and everyone can be self-employed? Yes. Self-employed means that you create your own project, however small it is, that can generate enough income to manage your own lifestyle. But for me, being an entrepreneur is about bringing projects into the world that didn't exist before because of a vision that you had, and creating employment for other people. So they're slightly different. Mm-hmm. And if I go by that definition, I don't know that everybody can be an entrepreneur, because you have to see the world in a certain way. You have to be really geared for solving problems. It has to really drive you to do that, because when things get tough, you have to have a certain amount of grit to be able to get through it. And in that way, I think I agree with Gary Vee when he says it's not necessarily everybody's desire to go and do the things that you have to do what it takes to bring something enormous to life.
Okay, cool. I dig it. So Tamryn, obviously I do want to speak about communication and speaking in this interview. What role then does speaking and communication play in what you do now, and why is it such an important skill for everyone to develop?
Well, being able to speak in a way that you can get other people to come along with your vision is an essential skill, no matter whether you're trying to be an entrepreneur, whether you're trying to be a parent, whether you're trying to be a friend, whether you're trying to be a worker in an organization. Because effectively, any information or talent or knowledge that you have, if you can't get it out of your head in a way that gets other people to, first of all, buy into what you're saying, believe in what you're saying, and then inspire some kind of action afterwards, then you might as well not even have that skill in the first place. You might as well not even have that talent. Mm-hmm. So it's an essential skill.
Yeah. And do you think this is like being able to communicate with influence like this? Is this only something for entrepreneurs and business people, or can anyone benefit from being a better communicator?
No, I think it's such an important investment to make for anybody. So a quote that I came across very recently, which surprised me, but I was very happy to find it, was that Warren Buffett, who's accumulated over $60 billion dollars in his lifetime, and is famous for giving investment recommendations, said that one of the best investments he ever made was going on a Dale Carnegie course in the early 50s, which taught him how to be confident when he speaks, and how to speak in a way that people listen and take action. So I think that applies to anyone, whether you're trying to make a good investment in yourself or whether you're trying to make an investment for your company. The same applies. Mm-hmm.
And then, like, something else that I'm sure everyone's heard is that, well, maybe not, but there's stats that like more people fear public speaking than dying.
Sure, that's a statistic. I've used it myself. I think it comes from some survey that happened in the early 90s, and maybe it's taken out of context, or maybe it's not. But apparently people said that, yes, they actually are more afraid of public speaking than they are dying. And I think that's a shame, because it's really just the lack of understanding of how they can bring their best selves into a moment, whether that's standing up in front of a crowd, but also that people don't realize that it doesn't have to be a formal public speaking scenario, that you should have your thoughts structured and that you should be deliberate, that actually you should be doing that all the time when you're at the water fountain in your office, or you're making a coffee with a colleague. Every communication opportunity is an opportunity for you to be either establishing your credibility or getting buy-in from other people.
Yeah, you touched on a few points there, like having organized thoughts. How can someone start speaking with more influence?
Well, for me, the starting point is getting out of your own head and what it is that you're trying to achieve, and practicing a serious exercise in empathy and understanding what it is that listener is experiencing and trying to achieve. And that sounds fairly simple, but it is astonishing how rare it is for somebody to be operating in the world like that. So in most of the training that I've run, I do an exercise in the beginning where I surface what the challenges are, and the challenges are always the same. How do I stop people from interrupting me? How do I stop audiences from being hostile? How do I get buy-in? And I hear them time and time again. And then when we get to the conversation about how do you go about structuring your meetings and your presentations, it always starts with the person thinking, okay, well, what do I need to get across? Rather than flipping that on its head and saying, what does my listener need to hear, and where are they in their journey? What are they trying to achieve as a team? What are they trying to achieve as an individual? So for me, it's that exercise in empathy that you have to really develop in order to be able to get good at connecting and therefore influencing.
Yeah, I think it was, I think I heard Michael Port say, and obviously he's like a big speaking influencer. He said something like the most common question he gets is, how can I be a good speaker? And I think his answer was something like, you shouldn't be trying to be a good speaker. You should be worrying about the audience taking away what it is that you need them to take away. And do you think, like, when we say people get so afraid of speaking, do you think it is because they're focusing too much on themselves and not on the people that are actually listening to them?
Yes, totally. I mean, there's a very good TED talk by Nancy Duarte where she draws on 2 points that answer your question now. The one is that people think as a speaker, particularly in a public speaking scenario, that you are the star of the show. And that puts you under a lot of pressure. You think everybody's there to see you and that you are the one who's going to be the guru. What Nancy Duarte says in that TED talk is that actually the audience is the star. The audience is the hero of your idea. And you as the speaker are just the Yoda, the mentor to the Luke Skywalker. You are there to guide the audience to be the champion of your idea. And when you change your framing into thinking, okay, I'm here actually to be of assistance and to guide and to be the mentor of the people. You shift your mindset to being of a giving rather than I'm here, look at me, eyes on me situation, which is very intense.
So we probably touched on this, and I'll link up to that TED talk in the show notes. I'm keen to check that out as well. So it's
a great talk.
Cool. So we kind of touched on this a little moment ago, but in your trainings and workshops that you've given to clients, what are some of the, like, let's say the 3 most common errors you see preventing effective communication?
The first one is definitely the one we've already spoken about, is starting from a selfish point of view, starting from what your own needs are and coming into any interaction, whether it's a formal one where you're giving a presentation or whether it's an informal one, sort of a conversational style meeting, is just talking about what you need to get out of it, what your needs are and what you can offer, rather than reframing everything that you're saying from the point of view of what the listener can receive. So that is by far the biggest one. And because that happens, it throws a lot of other things out of balance. So it's not necessarily a series of 1, 2, 3, these are the things. It's you've got that foundation wrong, and therefore what you build on ends up being ineffective.
Cool. So then if someone's listening to this and they do want to start becoming a more effective or influential speaker, what did you say are kind of like the three top tips for getting started, or how to speak with more influence?
I would say, and maybe I can send some templates over for you that you can put into your show notes. But I would say that you want to ask yourself a series of questions around the person that you're speaking to, and you want to have that clearly in mind before you even start thinking about what it is that you're going to say. The starting point is not what you're going to say. The starting point is who you're talking to. And once you're clear on that, then you can start thinking around what do I need to say to be able to connect with that person's reality. So part of the work that I've been doing developing Speak with Influence is being able to take people through the journey, literally a template of what do I need some questions that I need to answer so that I can have the right content to deliver to somebody. And it's all in line with who's the audience, what is their current situation, what's their ideal situation, and therefore what am I trying to propose and how does it relate back to those two?
Cool. Yeah, I think maybe we can put some of those templates in the show notes. That'll be really valuable, I think.
Sure.
So you're making this interview really easy for me, Tamryn. You touched on Speak with Influence now, and I know that's the latest project that you're working on. So why don't you share a bit about what that is?
Well, Speak with Influence is a digital format version of the workshops that I've been running across South Africa and Europe, where I help people structure their thinking when they're preparing for a meeting or preparing for a presentation. But because in parallel, I'm very fascinated with adult learning, and I've been very dissatisfied with how adult learning takes place, particularly in an online platform, I've also developed that content in a way that is in line with my beliefs about adult learning online, which is that it needs to be in short, bite-sized formats. I don't know about you, but I've signed up for lots and lots of online courses that I've actually paid quite a lot of money for, and then I've not done them.
I think that's where those guys make their money, is they know that it's like a gym membership. They know that not everyone's going to go.
Seriously, but I'm not interested in somebody signing up to learn something from me and then they don't engage with the content. That's fake. That's fraudulent. So there's a couple of theories I had around why that's true. The one is that the content's too long. Mm-hmm. But importantly, it's because it requires you to sit down. Now it's learning time. I've got to allocate 2 hours and I've got to watch these long videos. And then I close my laptop and then I go get on with my real life and go to work and have my day. And that the content that I'm trying to learn is not integrated into that. So to solve that problem, I have developed a way that a small micro lesson can arrive on your phone via an app and a push notification that it tells you, hey, Tamryn, you're very interested in increasing your influence. Here's just a little food for thought for this morning. And you get it in a minute. And then you have a challenge that you have to apply it all throughout the day. And then in the afternoon, a check-in of how you applied it. So it's practice-based learning that's also coming in bite-sized chunks that are very manageable. So it's not just about selling a course so that you can make money. It's about actually somebody's behavior being impacted and changing.
Yeah, and I also find that when these like really overwhelming courses, like you said, it's a couple of hours every evening, and it's all so condensed, and then you finish it and you end up forgetting everything like by the time, by next month or whatever it is.
Well, the problem is that people they think all learning is the same. They think that the way that you would learn mathematics or the way that you'd learn a big body of knowledge is the same way that you'd learn about skills and behavior change, and it's not. In the same way that a language is a tool to communicate, behavior is something that you have to put into practice, and it has to be practice-based learning.
Cool. So you mentioned a little bit about what the app will what the product will look like and what people can expect. So from what I heard, it's kind of like an app with little push reminders, and in that way you get to absorb all the content and the knowledge.
Yes, well, it's quite a cool interface. It's chat style, so it's kind of preempting this trend of bot style communication where it feels like you've got this personal touch, and it sort of comes up in a chat style, and then you've got your video and your little download of your audio clip so that you can listen to it while you're going. So it's really just about making whatever it is that you want to learn easy and accessible.
Cool. And is this in a course format, like there's a start and an end date, or is it a evergreen type of thing? How does that work?
It's got to start and an end date because, again, in my experience, that's the most effective way to get somebody to buy in. So going back to Speak with Influence, it's a 30-day challenge. It's how can you increase your ability to influence individuals in meetings and presentations and conversations in just 30 days. So it starts, and it's literally a challenge of knowing, okay, I'm going to adjust and measure what my behavioral change is by the end of 30 days.
Cool. And then that's launching pretty soon, if I'm correct, right?
Yes, well, the 1st of November, there's a November challenge, which happens to be 30 days. So the 1st of November is our first one. We've got quite a few people signed up. There's just a few spaces left, but I'm super excited to engage with those people because I bring my personal elements. There's a couple of webinars, there's a couple of one-on-one coaching sessions, and then there's the content that I develop and send to you on your app. So it's quite a well-rounded, fun experience.
Cool. And I'll definitely put a link to the show notes for those last few spots. Because by the time this episode comes out, it'll be the 31st of October. So that'll be tomorrow, guys. If you're listening to this on release date, then tomorrow is the day to start.
Jump on board. I hope there's space.
Cool. Tamryn, I do want to be mindful of the time, but before we wrap up, I've got a couple of sort of quick fire questions I want to ask at the end here. So just the first thing that comes to mind in a sentence or two is perfect.
Sure.
The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told early in your 20s?
Man, that you can truly follow your excitement. You don't have to do what you think the world expects of you.
Cool. What is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
Whoa, that you can make up what it is that you want to make up and leverage the technology that's available. It's outrageous. Get on it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, this next question's a little more complicated. What would I need to ask you for this to become the most important thing for 20-somethings to hear? And how would you answer that?
What would you need to ask me? You would need to ask me maybe what was my most difficult challenge throughout my 20s, and how did I make my way through it?
I love it. Let's hear it.
As I might have mentioned, I think I mentioned in the beginning of this interview that I had quite a turbulent 20s. I really thought that I needed to have all my stuff sorted out, and I needed to get on a path, and I needed to stay on it. And when I was having a bad day, or when I realized I was not enjoying what I was doing, I really felt like a failure. So my biggest challenge was, how did I realize that was a lie, that wasn't true? And it was through just accessing other people who are doing it, listening to books, listening to podcasts, having honest conversations about people with people about what it's really like.
Not about people.
Probably about a lot of people too, but with people, about just being honest about what it's like. You don't always know what to do. You don't always know what's coming around the next corner. And as long as people are being honest about that and talking about their failures and talking about their uncertainties, you realize that you're not alone. And that is, for me, everybody should they should know that. They should just know that. Cool. It's powerful.
I love it. Something else that I meant to mention at the beginning of this episode is, it's not often that I interview a fellow South African, and a lot of people, like, what you don't see from listening to these episodes is like the conversations I have before and after the recording. And so many of the guests come on and they're like, man, you've got the best accent. And so now people are getting two of them.
And then there were two cool accents.
Dun, dun, dun. Tam, I have one more question. But before I get to that, what's the best place for people to get in touch with you and find out more about Speak with Influence and all the other work that you've got going on?
They can go to speakwithinfluence.com. The challenge is run from a finite period, so you can't just hop on wherever. You have to wait until the next one runs, because I'm literally going on a journey with a group. But you can certainly pop me an email from there. And of course, there's TamrynSherriffs.com, where you can also find me on all my social medias.
Mm-hmm. All the socials. Tamryn, before I get to the final question, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on today, and for pursuing through that thought of having to have everything figured out, and for taking an unconventional path and finding your unique spot, and now helping other people do the same through communication and speaking. The final question that I have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start their own quarter life comeback?
Is to start. That's what they can do. Whatever that little thing is in the back of your mind that you're curious about doing, but you just don't know, you don't know if it'll work, or you just don't know how, just make a start, because you don't know what the second step will be until you learn from your first step. So that's my one thing, is just make a start.
I love it. Tamryn Sherriffs, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
You are very welcome.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 36 of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast. And a big thanks once again to Tamryn for coming on today and sharing not only her journey through her 20s, but also her expertise on speaking with more influence and effective communication. If you like this episode and know someone else who'll dig it, make sure you share it around on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, it's the fact that we don't need to know what that step 2 is. Once we've taken step 1 and learned from that, then we can evaluate where to go next. So just take the smallest step you can on whatever project it is that's making you feel the most excited right now. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode, as well as those templates that Tamryn threw in for how to start speaking with more influence at briantier.com/036. Thanks so much for spending time with me again this week, and until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.